which shows that this concept of the network, when you have enough critical mass, it can really work well in your favor. But you do have to have enough critical mass. So, well, you have to have enough channels that, or enough content in the same genre to generate that exposure. That, you know, if you have like a cluster of 5 channels in the same genre, it's not enough to generate a ton of traffic for each other, right? But if you have 100 or 200, it just starts to become interesting. So these are the types of things that we did for him. We also implemented, we didn't talk about this before, but we implemented different rights policies on YouTube. So YouTube allows you to, monetize, but it also allows you to block copies. Blocking copies of your content is not good in terms of monetization, but it's great for audience growth. And so if you want to grow your channel, you can, you should at least in the first 3 or 4 weeks of putting out new content, you should block copies. Well, that's what we do nowadays. We didn't do that in the beginning, but that's what we do now because we see the tremendous results. Now, if you don't want to block, there's another option you can do. It's called the Content ID campaign, and that's at the bottom right. And what does that do? That monetizes all the third-party content, all the copies, but it shows an image or it gives you a message here that if you want to see the official video, it tells the user, this is the copy. If you want to see the official, go here. So that's a great way to generate audiences for your content because the user's going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to go to the official one. That's going to be better. And they go there, they subscribe, and mission accomplished. So those are great tools that YouTube have created to help creators maximize their audience growth. One of the things that we did too with Conzilla is that we have this playlist in the genre, in this particular genre, and we have all these channels. So we can syndicate a playlist on YouTube and put it on all our channels. So we have 100 channels of that same genre. We can put the same playlist on the homepage of their channel, and so that all their audiences follow our playlist, get the plays, and that generates audiences as well. So that's a pretty cool thing. And I think Spotify has some similar, is working on some similar things. But you can obviously do a lot of the social type sharing of following others on Spotify, and you can share the same playlist. So they're working. I mean, they're creating those tools too. But that's a great way to do it. And the other thing that we did is we added our playlist in that genre on Spotify. We added the link to that playlist on all of Conzilla's videos in the description. Check out this new music. And so because he's generating 750 million plays a month on his videos, if people bother to scroll down and look at the description, they'll see the playlist on Spotify, they'll click on it, and they'll generate plays for us on Spotify. So now you're starting to see how you can connect the dots. Yes?
Okay. This is great for Conzilla, who's like a super mega star in Brazil.
Yeah.
But what about the artist that's just starting out and you're a small label,
Yeah, I'm going to get there. I'm going to show you some examples of that too. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Like, where do we fit in this thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. But he's a megastar now, but he wasn't a megastar 2 or 3 years ago. And so he had some size. So, but I'm going to show you some examples of some smaller case studies, some smaller artists. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Is that YouTube Content ID campaign a paid campaign, or actually
It's free.
Tool that they?
Yeah, it's free. It's a cool tool. A lot of this stuff is free. I mean, the featured content is free. All that stuff that I just showed you, everything we showed you is free, other than the ads. But everything that we did for him, we didn't spend any money on any of this stuff. All right, let's go to another bigger artist, but then I'll go to some smaller artists. So this is Café Tacuba. This is a Mexican band, kind of the premier Latin alternative Mexican bands or Latin bands, but from Mexico. And I thought this was an interesting example because this is a band that hadn't released any music in 4.5 years, right? So this is a legacy band that was with the majors their whole life. They were with Universal for 20, 25 years. And last time they put out an album was in 2012, which was still the golden age of iTunes. And so they didn't really know how to put music out in the new kind of modern age. And they didn't have the marketing dollars of a major label. So nor did they want it either, right? They just chose to be independent, and they could have easily signed with a label, but they chose not to. And I think this is an interesting, let's go through some of the things. But when they started off, they had about 1.2 million fans. on Spotify, and now or listeners, monthly listeners, and now they're at about 2.2. So it's almost doubled in a period of 9 months. They put out in this period 3 singles and 1 full album. And it's still ongoing and still growing. But what they didn't know how to do is they didn't know how to use socials to their advantage. So they weren't even using, they would post on socials, they wouldn't even put a link. And so we worked with them to kind of connect all the dots and help grow their audiences on all the different platforms, including socials. And it's been a pretty successful campaign. They've used a variety of tactics with like This Is Café Tacuba playlist, which is obviously a Spotify curated playlist, but it's really the artist playlist. And we did a kind of special project with them where Café Tacuba came here in New York and recorded some interviews with Spotify and explaining what some of the songs were, and those interviews are part of the playlist so people can understand kind of the background of the song, get some more information. So you can create pretty cool content that's not just here's the official song, but here's also the commentary around the song, or some a 30-second track that talks about the song essentially, and so you could do interesting things around that. They never had a YouTube channel, and they're quite an experimental band, so they're not creating, even though they're very well known and very well respected, they're not creating traditional type pop stuff that's necessarily a massive hit. So because they're experimental, we saw good growth with them. They started off with about 5,000 subscribers with us, and now they're at 80,000 in 9 months. Those are modest numbers for a band like that, but they're also creating kind of experimental content. So we think it's been pretty good and it's been successful. But again, employing the network to help cross promote them has been a positive experience. All right, here's a smaller artist. This is Jordan DePaul. He's a Nashville-based singer-songwriter, Americana, and not a huge artist, but very talented. And this is what we did with him. One is we verified all his socials, so that was step number 1. And step number 2 is we got him featured, which we talked about in the beginning, despite the fact that he was somebody who had no real traction in his career. Sorry, somebody's Skyping me. I forgot to turn that off before I left. Yeah, maybe I'll just loop them into our conversation, right? Who knows? They got a ton of features on Spotify, and again, it's hard to read. But like Song Picker 2016 Best Songs, Americana Radio. So there is the challenge of being an independent artist and getting featured on playlists, but it's certainly not impossible. And it actually happens for us. It happens on a weekly basis. I mean, I think that we have a philosophy as a company is like we want to get all our artists featured because we think all our artists are great, and we're fighting for that with the curators and with our label reps at these different services, and we're pitching them every week, and they pay attention. I mean, we don't always get what we want, but we have a really good track record because we're sending them good content, and we know that it's in their best interest to break artists. That if they're not doing that, if they're only focusing on bigger acts or major label stuff, that then they're not going to have the credibility, right? So I think that we have a pretty engaged response from the editorial teams at these different services. So here's Apple and Spotify specifically, where he got featured. He had, obviously starting from a low base, but he had a 150% increase in Spotify followers after about a month or so. On Facebook, after he was verified, he had a 17% jump in likes. And he was also featured globally. He wasn't just featured in the US. He's a singer-songwriter. He charted. He went on number 26 in Brazil's top 20 viral. He was also Song of the Day, I think in Portugal. No, that was in Brazil as well. And we kind of created a ratio. I don't know if it's a very scientific ratio, probably not. But how are you doing? What's your Facebook play to like ratio? It's an interesting way to normalize the data. If you have 20 million fans on Facebook and you're getting 100 million views, well, then you have a ratio of 5 to 1, right? But so that's not bad. but maybe 80-1 is even better. You know, I don't know. It's interesting to try to normalize data from independent, smaller artists, up-and-coming artists to these major stars. How well are you doing in relation to your socials? So that's something to keep track, and we look at that occasionally. So I have a couple other ones I can show you as well of smaller artists. But let me, is this, no. How do I get out of here? No, sorry guys, this whole thing's throwing me off. So I guess to answer your question about the smaller artists, this is Little Monarch. This is the one I wanted to show you. This is another one, but I'm trying to find it and I can't. Sorry. Lots of stuff open. I had it open here. Here we go. John Langston. We can try John Langston. This is another up-and-coming artist from Nashville, and the same stuff. I mean, the stuff that works for the bigger artists works for the small artists. It's leveraging the tools that you have to develop your audience, and what we use is our network, so that your marketing is not, you're not using only your assets. You're using our network's assets, and how can we bring those assets to your benefit? And that's the key thing that we're working on today. And if I can, and so, I mean, I guess I don't think I have that much more to add at this point. It's repetition. It's understanding. I think next steps for our company and for what we're doing on marketing is understanding where getting better numbers to see really what works. Understanding the correlation between what you do on this platform and how it affects your business on another platform, or even within a platform. If you're doing this on Spotify, does that actually work? And the only way to know for sure is to do it over and over and over again, hundreds of times, measure the results, and run some correlation statistics. That's where we are today. So I think that kind of completes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Nope? Okay, thank you.
Let's thank Emmanuel again for sharing his insight and time with us. Coming up next at 12:30, we'll have the Pledge Music Workshop.